The scorching apocalypse arrives, with surface temperatures soaring to 70 degrees Celsius, and the first wave of humans begins relocating to Arctic bases. As a scientist, my husband was among the first granted permission to bring family members. Everyone assumed he would take me without hesitation, yet when the application was finalized, the name he filled in was that of his graduate student. I raised that young girl myself, and with no parents by her side. I couldn't bear to leave her alone in such a scorching place. He submitted the application without a second thought, and his words chilled me to the bone. Juan, you're different. You've been able to endure hardship since childhood. I believe you can hold out until the second batch of relocations. I forced a bitter smile but remained silent. That night, watching the rising temperature, I calmly made a phone call. You once said you'd grant me one wish unconditionally. Does that still stand? There was no hesitation on the other end. Of course, I tentatively asked, could you prepare 2 tickets for the Ark? I'd like to leave with my mother in the first group. A chance to survive is hard to come by. They couldn't guarantee anything either, only saying, I'll do my best. After hanging up, Jiang Shubai happened to walk in, but his gaze remained fixed on his phone screen. Who were you just talking to on the phone? I was too tired to even lie, and said wearily. Find someone to get tickets. Jiang Shubai didn't even look at me, and just casually said, there are only a few hundred tickets for the first batch going to the base. You can't get them, otherwise I would have found a way for you already. I tightened my grip on the phone. Of course, he knew that tickets were hard to come by, but he still abandoned me without hesitation and took his graduate students with him. Seeing that I didn't respond, he finally looked up. Juan, don't worry. I've applied for a spot for you in the second batch. You won't die. Listening to the continuously rising temperature on the radio, I let out a cold laugh in my heart. Everyone knew that in this extreme heat apocalypse, every day delayed meant a lower chance of survival. The apocalypse is imminent, perhaps due to excessive anxiety. I even harbored a glimmer of hope as I asked him, Jiang Shubai, could you take her away first, considering my mother funded you for 6 years? She's old and in poor health, she simply can't hold on much longer. An unbearable silence hung in the air. The room was unlit, making it hard for me to discern the expression on Jiang Shubui's face. We've been married for 7 years, but this isn't the 7th year we've known each other. We grew up together in the same alley since childhood, inseparable as close friends. However, during the summer vacation before junior high school, Jiang's parents tragically died in a car accident. My mother, heartbroken at the thought of the young boy having no one to rely on, took him in. In those days when even rice, flour, and oil were scarce, she somehow managed to put 2 children through college. That summer after the college entrance exams, he, who had always been quiet and reserved, promised me that even if the apocalypse came, he would die with us. The summer that year wasn't as hot as it is now, but his palms were scorching, enough to make my whole heart boil. I closed my eyes tightly, and the memories scattered. Jiang Shubai remained silent for a long time. After a while, he finally said, Erwin, Wanshu is my right-hand assistant. I must take her with me. No room for negotiation, and don't take those childhood jokes seriously anymore. I smiled bitterly, nearly losing my balance. It was clearly the scorching end of the world, yet his every word chilled me to the bone. Soon, the dark clouds dispersed, and moonlight illuminated his distant eyes. Jiang Shubai nudged me with a file folder. Here, take this first, open. It was a divorce agreement. I looked at him in surprise. Jiang Shubai slowly took a sip of tea. He explained, the first batch of people bringing family members need to provide proof. Wanshu and I are only in a teacher-student relationship, which doesn't count. My hands trembled as I took the paper divorce agreement, and I gritted my teeth. So, he nervously adjusted his glasses, but his voice was as rational and indifferent as ever. So you need to divorce me first and give up your identity as Mrs. Jiang to her, so that Wanshu can successfully board Noah's Ark. Juan, it's just a fake divorce, and my marriage to her is also fake. Don't worry about it. It's just a reputation. You're the only one in my heart. I lowered my eyes and gave a bitter laugh. I don't know when it happened, but the topics between Jiang Shubai and me changed from scientific research to only daily necessities. Maybe it was a day after we got married, or maybe it was the day Chen Wanshu became his graduate student. I can't remember. This time, it was rare for him to speak so much to me in one breath. yet it was to ask for a divorce. With mixed emotions in my heart, I sniffled and signed my name without hesitation. Seeing my decisiveness, Jiang Shubai slightly furrowed his brows. His voice faintly revealed displeasure. Erwin, when the extreme heat apocalypse is over, we'll remarry. I turned my head away, waving my hand dismissively. You yourself said it's the apocalypse. It's just a piece of paper. What's the big deal? We don't even know if we'll live to see next month. Why don't you think about how to save the continent instead? Scientist Jiang. He lowered his voice. That's not what I meant. Don't be mad at me over a little girl. I ignored him, went back to bed, and pulled the covers over my head. Fortunately, the moonlight was dim at that moment, preventing him from noticing my overwhelming sadness. Soon, Jiang Shubai also lay down next to me, back to back, as distant and cold as ever. It was the closest distance, yet somehow it had become impossibly far. I suddenly wiped my eyes. Nowadays, the air conditioning circuits in many places have burned out, and no one can guarantee that our home won't be the next to lose its cooling. The thought of the risk of literally dying from the heat kept me awake until midnight, until a sudden phone ringtone sounded. It was Jiang Shubai's, a special ringtone he had set specifically for Chen Wanshu. Then came a flurry of fumbling to hang up, as if afraid to wake me. Even through the covers, I could feel his somewhat nervous gaze. Jiang Shubai tiptoed to the living room and opened the door. He whispered in an extremely low voice, "Wanshu, why are you here so late?" Chen Wanshu choked back a sob. "Professor Jiang, my air conditioner is broken, and it's unbearably hot. I really had nowhere else to go, so I just," pulling her suitcase, she looked pitifully at him. "Could I stay here for a few days?" I clutched the corner of the quilt tightly. Chen Wanshu and I were both waiting for Jiang Shuba's answer, but just like that train ticket, I always lost completely. The door creaked, opening wider. "Jiang Shubai, come in, but don't wake Erwan, she's a light sleeper." Chen Wanshu burst into tears and then smiled. "Professor Jiang, you're the best to me." Before stepping over the threshold, she pulled back. "But if you take me in, will your wife mind?" Jiang Shubai was silent for a moment, as if demonstrating his noble teaching ethics. "Don't worry about her, you are my student. Staying for a few days is no problem at all." Separated by a door, my heart completely chilled. After settling Chen Wanshu, Jiang Shubai was about to return to his room. Chen Wanshu suddenly pulled his hand and cautiously asked, "By the way, Director Jiang, you gave me the family ticket. Does your wife approve?" Jiang Shubai's voice was softer than ever before. "Wanshu, you are my most accomplished student. I need your help with my experiment. Erwin will understand. This is all for the benefit of humanity." I let out a cold laugh. He had once again elevated his selfish motives to a point where I couldn't refute them. Always rational, always objective, just like countless times before. He silently endured my anger and questioning, as if my hysteria was a joke in the face of his calmness. The pillow was soaked without me realizing it. At the same time, my phone suddenly lit up. It was a text message, clearly sent with the fear of disturbing my sleep. "Erwan, tickets are secured. A car will pick you and your aunt up in 3 days." A huge weight was finally lifted from my heart. However, that night, the bedroom door never opened again. Jiang Shubai stayed in the living room, having an all-night discussion with Chen Wanshu about the extreme heat apocalypse. I can already imagine what excuses he'll use to put me off if I go out. Academic discussion, teacher-student communication, I've heard it too many times. It's practically a cliché. I've even lost the will to push open that door. Forget it. In this scorching apocalypse, every outburst of anger would cause heartburn. I need to conserve my strength to take my mother and me away. Besides, in the face of life and death, such love affairs seem less important. After pondering, I fell into a deep sleep. But, unexpectedly, Chen Wanshu didn't leave the next day. Instead, she sat brazenly at the dining table, eating breakfast from my plate. Seeing me come out, she bowed respectfully. Polite and courteous, "Hello, mistress, my air conditioner broke, and I only just arrived this morning. I apologize for the inconvenience and ask for your understanding." I sarcastically twitched the corner of my mouth. The blanket on the sofa hadn't been folded yet. They didn't intend to explain, or rather, they couldn't be bothered to explain to me. "Erwan, let's eat." Jiang Shubai, uncharacteristically, cooked. portraying himself as a good, domestic man in front of Chen Wanshu. Chen Wanshu picked up her knife and fork again, and I stared intently at the plate under her hand. That was the Qixi festival 5 years ago, and Jiang Shubai and I had fired it ourselves. On the bottom of that plate, the vow of a lifetime that he had made when he was young was still engraved. It could be said that this plate was our token of love, and now, it was in another woman's hands. Noticing my gaze, Jiang Shubai casually said, "Oh, if the little girl likes it, just let her use it." I was practically fuming, so I grabbed my car keys and went out to pick up my mom. Jiang Shubai grabbed my arm and coldly demanded, "Where are you going? It's 70 degrees outside right now. Even if you're going to make a scene, don't joke around with your life." Chen Wanshu also spoke with red eyes. "Yes, godmother, the asphalt is melting now. Even driving is very dangerous." I let out a heavy breath. "I'm going to pick up my mom." Let go. During the pushing and shoving, the dinner plate in front of Chen Wanshu fell to the ground, along with that vow that had penetrated 3 points into the bowl. It completely shattered into trash. Jiang Shubai was momentarily stunned, his chest inexplicably tightening. I pushed him away abruptly and stepped out into the sweltering heat. In this scorching apocalypse, stray cats and dogs had vanished from the streets, leaving only an eerie silence in their wake. I hurried to pick up my mother and bring her back, any later, and even the air conditioner in her rural home would have burned out. But as soon as I got home, I was met with scrutinizing gazes. Jiang Shubai quickly hid the emotions in his eyes, took my mother's luggage, and respectfully said, "Teacher Zhuang." My mother smiled kindly. After settling in, Jiang Shubai pulled me aside. He looked at me with a grim face. "Erwan, there's something I need to remind you. It's the apocalypse now. Resources are scarce, and our family's food reserves won't last much longer. For people, that might be a bit too many." I suddenly looked up, unable to believe what I had just heard. How dare he imply my mom was a burden? I looked at him in disbelief, my heart aching with unbearable disappointment. "Jiang Shubai, she's my mother, the mentor who supported you for 6 years. How could you bear to say such things?" Jiang Shubai adjusted his glasses and said indifferently, "Erwan, every ration has been precisely calculated by me. I'm just telling the truth." Again, that calm and rational expression. My anger felt like it was hitting cotton, but I couldn't take it anymore. "Jiang Shubai, then let Chen Wanshu leave. How dare you think my mother is superfluous? Has your conscience been eaten by dogs?" When Chen Wanshu was mentioned, he suddenly raised his voice. "So, that's why I'm discussing this with you now." Jiang Shubai threw out a schedule: eat less but more frequently. Just hold on until 3 days later when Wanshu and I leave. After that, you'll have to figure it out on your own. I didn't even look at it, just tore that piece of paper to shreds. Outside, my mother was eyeing Chen Wanshu with some confusion. She asked me nervously, "Sweetie, who is this?" Jiang Shubai, unusually tense, looked at me. He even silently stood in Chen Wanshu's way, giving her a strong sense of security. I watched this scene with a heavy heart. To me, Jiang Shubai was as aloof as a distant star, but now it seems, the starlight simply doesn't shine on me. I didn't want to worry my mom, so I forced a smile. "Mom, this is one of Su Bai's students." My mom visibly relaxed, her face lighting up with a smile. "This child looks quite lovely too. So we're all leaving together in 3 days, right?" My mom, being perceptive, was still looking at Jiang Shubai as she said this. Hearing this, Jiang Shubai's expression froze for a moment. I answered for him. "Mom, go pack your luggage first, don't bring too much. 10 kilograms per person." My mother squinted with a smile and patted the back of my hand. Good, you should go pack up too. It would be best if we could all leave together." I responded with a sullen then got up and headed toward the bedroom. With Jiang Shubai following closely behind, the door shut heavily. Jiang Shubai irritably ruffled his hair. "Did you tell your mother you're coming with us? How am I supposed to handle this? Where am I going to get 2 more tickets?" "Tong Wan, you're deceiving her. Do you realize that?" I smiled. "It wasn't a deception. We'll leave, and from now on, we'll have nothing to do with him." Jiang Shubai frowned. "Tong Wan, what are you laughing at? Are you saying you deliberately put me on the spot, forcing me to take your mother away?" I spread out my suitcase, not sparing him a single glance. Don't worry, my mother and I won't affect your 2 spots on the Noah's Ark." Then I dumped all my personal belongings into the suitcase in one go, tossing the souvenirs from the cabinet into the trash along the way. When the apocalypse comes, all these things are trash, including all that love and romance. Jiang Shubai picked up a 3rd anniversary commemorative doll from the trash can, his expression completely darkening. I didn't want to talk to him any further and directly moved the items to the guest room where my mother was staying. Over the next 3 days, resources were indeed scarce, with each person only receiving 1 cup of water per meal. But just the day before departure, I got up in the middle of the night and saw Chen Wanshu applying ice cubes to her face. I didn't say anything, but her eyes instantly reddened. "Mistress, my skin is just too dry. I wanted to moisturize. I'm sorry, I won't use it next time." Jiang Subai arrived upon hearing the commotion and said to me, neither warmly nor coldly, "Erwin, she's young, why are you arguing with her?" I felt somewhat baffled, yet just yesterday, he had complained about my mother being in the way. Turns out he was saving supplies for the little girl. When my gaze met Chen Wanshu's, I noticed the grievance on her face slowly freezing at the corners of her lips, eventually forming a meaningful smile. Exhausted, I took the supplies for my mother and myself and retreated to my room. Jiang Shubai wanted to reach out to stop her but hesitated, that suffocating feeling surging in his chest once more. Time quickly arrived at the 3rd day. Carrying my luggage, I held my mother's hand as we waited by the door for Noah's Ark. When Jiang Shubai saw me, he quickly pulled me aside, his voice growing more impatient. "Tong Wan, do you really have to follow me no matter what? I've already made it clear. You and your mother are to leave in the 2nd group. Can't you understand what I'm saying? Besides, even if I didn't take Wanshu and only took you, would you really abandon your mother to come with me? I'm doing this for your own good." Once again, he spoke so much to me on behalf of Chen Wanshu. I curled my lips in self-mockery and said to him, "Who said I'm following you? I told you. Don't worry about my and my mom's train tickets. I have my own way." Jiang Shubai furrowed his brows and grabbed my arm. "Tong Wan, you haven't worked for years. How could you possibly get the tickets? Stop being stubborn, will you?" Hearing this, I nearly laughed in anger. That year, there was only 1 spot to enter the research institute. It was because I voluntarily withdrew that Jiang Shubai achieved what he has today. I shook off his hand. "Jiang Shubai, don't make me feel like I was blind in the past." "All right." He looked at his now empty hand, his frown deepening as he shouted loudly, "Tong Wan, everything I've done is the result of careful consideration. Why can't you just listen to me one more time? I don't want my mom to hear." So I coldly pull back the suitcase and say, "None of your business." Jiang Shubai still wants to say something, but the Noah's Ark vehicle arrives. I help my mom board, but Jiang Shubai grows frantic. "Tong Wan, are you crazy? Without a spot, do you still plan to force your way onto the vehicle?" With that, he gave Chen Wanshu a look. "You go up first, don't let them take your seat." Chen Wanshu smiled faintly, but to her surprise, the staff member checked the form and stopped her from boarding. "This car is arranged by President Qin to pick up Ms. Tong and her mother. Please don't interfere with official business." In an instant, Jiang Shubui's expression turned extremely awkward. President Qin. Qin Zhaonan, a name that had always stirred Jiang Shubai's envy, reached his ears again after so many years. Jiang Shubai, usually composed and calm, now had veins bulging at his temples. "Tong Wan, you, give me an explanation. Why are you still in contact with him?" I pulled the car door open. This time, it was my turn to say coldly to him, "I just want to survive. If you won't help, someone else will." Ignoring Jiang Shubai's hysteria, the car drove off into the distance. My mother fidgeted uneasily and asked me, "Sweetheart, aren't Shubai and that young girl getting in the car?" I replied, "Mom, don't worry, they'll take the next one. This car is ours." My mother fell silent for a moment, then patted my back with concern. "Sweetheart, did you have a fight with Shubai? Don't be sad, Mommy's here." I bit my lip, and the tears I had been holding back finally burst forth uncontrollably. The Noah's Ark vehicle hurried along and finally arrived at the Arctic base 3 days later. This place has not yet been ravaged by the extreme heat. It is the last pure land on Earth. Jiang Shubai and Chen Wanshu followed closely behind. His face remained frighteningly dark. Just as he was about to step forward to speak to me, Chen Wanshu pulled him back again. Director Jiang, official matters come first. Let's go register at the base entrance. Jiang Shubai took a deep breath and walked towards the door. Chen Wanshu paced over to me, her voice extremely low. Teacher Tong, you're just relying on your childhood friendship with Teacher Jiang. In terms of ability, what right do you have to board the Noah's Ark? And what right do you have to be here? She finally couldn't keep up the pretense. I let out a cold laugh, having no interest in arguing with a little girl, that year. When I swept all the physics awards and received countless offers from top research institutes, she was still nowhere to be seen. At that moment, the gaze of the researcher at the door lingered on me and Jiang Shubai. He said to him, "This must be you and your wife. Welcome to the Arctic base. May you both contribute to the cause of saving humanity." But then Chen Wanshu quickly took out the red certificate she had already prepared. "Comrade, you've got the wrong person. I'm Mrs. Jiang." Then she subtly glanced at me. As for that woman and her mother, I don't know how these two useless people got in, maybe through connections. After speaking, she playfully stuck out her tongue. "Sorry, I was just guessing, don't actually believe it." My face darkened as I said coldly, "Chen Wanshu, have you considered the consequences before saying that?" Jiang Shubo quickly covered Chen Wanshu's mouth and scolded, "Stop talking for now." Chen Wanshu mumbled in protest. Am I wrong? A woman pushing 30, dragging along her 60-year-old mother. What use is she here besides taking up resources? With these 2 extra spots, why can't they be given to the families of the vast number of scientists? It's simply outrageous and disheartening. The voice was loud enough for everyone nearby to hear clearly. The Arctic base gathered thousands of top figures from around the world, and countless people struggled to get in. Even the most authoritative scientists could only bring 1 family member, while their wives, children, and parents remained in the extremely hot apocalypse, their fates unknown. So, when Chen Wanshu said that, everyone's pent-up frustration instantly shifted to me. I instinctively shielded my mother and took a step back. Just as I was about to call Qin Zhaonan, someone suddenly slapped my phone out of my hand. It was a scholar with a medal, who said, "Useless people come here, have you no shame?" One after another, people chimed in, "Yeah, the apocalypse is upon us. Why should useless people be allowed in, even at the end of the world? Are we still playing favorites? Is there no justice left? Why can't these 2 spots go to my mom? I even have a Nobel Prize in chemistry." As if, by not taking up these 2 spots, my mother and I could magically make room for all their family members to come here. I shielded my mother's head, my explanations completely drowned out by the furious crowd. But that's not how it is. I'm useful, at least more useful than Jiang Shubai and Chen Wanshu. Just then, someone fired a gun, nipping the riot in the bud. "Let her in." The speaker was none other than Qin Zhaonan. Qin Zhaonan stood at the base entrance, holding a gun. After a long absence, the sharpness in his eyes was even more pronounced. He wiped the muzzle of his gun and said coldly, "They are my family, ladies and gentlemen. Any more questions?" There was a moment of silence around them. Someone quickly flattered, "The Arctic base was established under the leadership of the Chu family. President Qin bringing 2 family members is naturally no problem." Yes, yes. Who was the blind fool just now daring to criticize President Qin's family members? They truly deserve to die. Jiang Shubai's face, however, turned frighteningly dark as he hurriedly pushed his way to the front of the crowd. "Qin Zhaonan, since when has my wife become your family member?" I quickly distanced myself. "Jiang Shubai, don't forget, we're already divorced." A barely perceptible scoff drifted away in the evening breeze as Qin Zhaonan also remarked, "Oh, wife, isn't your wife the graduate student standing beside you, Mr. Jiang?" These words struck like a bolt from the blue, and the surrounding whispers grew louder. "Hey, that's right, I've seen Jiang Shubai's wife at the research institute, and she definitely doesn't look like Chen Wanshu. I get it now." Jiang Shubai deliberately got divorced just to use the family quota to take his female student with him. TSK. What a clever trick to swap the real for the fake. How shameless, disdainful and humiliating gazes fell upon Chen Wanshu. Chen Wanshu flushed red. "But I'm useful too. I have the highest GPA at X university. I'm the most outstanding graduate." Someone sneered, "Fool. The last thing we lack here is excellence." Chen Wanshu's voice already carried a sob as she pointed at me and said, "What about her? After all, She's just a beneficiary of connections. How can she compare to me? Qin Zhaonan frowned, the sound of a gun being cocked coming from his hand. I stopped him, took a deep breath, and pulled out my already yellowed ID. I can be useful. An elderly man adjusted his glasses and was instantly struck with astonishment. Good heavens, you're Tong Wan. I've heard so much about you. What an honor, indeed. In these apocalyptic times, strength is the only true currency. The old man hurriedly grasped my hand, repeatedly expressing his admiration. Ms. Tong Wan, 6 years ago after you published your SCI and Nature papers on gamma rays, we could no longer find you. Where have you been working all these years? I responded with a polite smile but couldn't answer. Glancing sideways, I saw Jiang Xubu's face was terrifyingly grim. Yes, that year. The research institute only admitted one person. Jiang Xubu begged me to give him my spot. And out of over a decade of friendship, I nodded in agreement. As for later, after I married him, he didn't want me to continue my research work. The reason given was that he feared it would harm my health. At that time, still young, my own future couldn't compare to the overwhelming love I had for him. All I knew was that I loved him at that moment, and that was everything. But now, looking back, it seems utterly ridiculous. As thoughts returned, Qin Zhaonan extended his hand. Tong Wan, your arrival has brought great honor to the Arctic base. I shook his hand in return. Thank you. After settling into the base, Qin Zhaonan stubbornly insisted on helping me with my luggage. I waved my hand, quickly saying, "Put it down, I can do it myself." He carried the box without looking back. No way. I missed out 7 years ago, and 7 years later, I don't want to let someone else do it for me. After speaking, he gave a self-deprecating smile. Tong Wan, I really don't understand. What was it about me that couldn't compare to Jiang Xubai back then? I patted him with some amusement. It's almost the end of the world. Time to let go, buddy. Can't let go, Tong Wan, even if it's the end. He laughed, but his expression turned utterly serious. His eyes filled with an unshakable longing. I froze slightly, my thoughts drifting back to the past. Qin Zhaonan was my senior in the same department, and we once shared the same research lab. That day, an experiment he was in charge of went wrong, resulting in an explosion. Powered by adrenaline, I carried his severely injured body and desperately climbed 17 floors. When Qin Zhaonan woke up, he stared at those 17 floors in silence, tears streaming down his face, until he finally broke down sobbing like a dog, promising to grant me 17 wishes as a token of gratitude. For the first 16, I probably wished for things like milk tea or hamburgers, and after graduation, I never gave much thought to that last wish, until 7 years ago, when I married Jiang Xubai, and he sent me an envelope from abroad. He told me that the last wish would always stand to be fulfilled unconditionally. Jiang Xubai knew the history between us and had always held a grudge about it. I sighed softly. Enough, it's all in the past. In the face of humanity's survival, how can we still care about these things? The urgent task now is to resolve this unprecedented apocalyptic catastrophe. After multiple discussions, it was determined that the root cause of the extreme heat apocalypse lies in the drastic changes in solar activity, which triggered a super flare, causing the sun's brightness to temporarily reach 20 times its normal level. How long is this expected to last? Initial observations suggest the effects of the super flare will persist for approximately 2 more years. After these words were spoken, all the researchers present wore solemn expressions. The Arctic base can accommodate no more than 10,000 people, leaving billions on the continent with nowhere to go. The top priority is to develop thermal insulation films or construct underground cities to survive the drastic solar changes over the next 2 years. Jiang Xubai's expertise lies in astrophysics, and he volunteered. President Qin, I'll take charge as the lead. I have extensive knowledge in this area. Qin Zhaoran, who separates personal and professional matters, nodded in agreement. Jiang Xubai pointed out a few people, including Chen Wanshu. Finally, his gaze landed on me. Ruan, you come too. I raised both hands. Sorry, I'm not good at this. In truth, it wasn't that I wasn't good at it. What Jiang Xubai could do, I could do too. It's just that I'm not suitable to work with him and Chen Wanshu right now. Forcibly joining and affecting the progress would be irresponsible to the experiment. Jiang Xubai looked away hesitantly, leading a small team away. As Chen Wanshu passed me, she said triumphantly. Tong Wan, just you watch, I'm the only one who's Shubai's most capable partner. I lowered my eyes and smiled, then began working on the dungeon-related content. What I didn't expect was that about 2 months later. One afternoon, a loud bang came from the north of the base. Jiang Shubai was engulfed in flames, suffering extensive burns across his body. 2 other researchers were exposed to 10 times the gamma radiation and died on the spot. By the time Qin Zhaonan and I arrived at the scene, only a mess remained. I stopped a staff member and asked, "What on earth is going on?" He shakily pointed to the side. It's an experiment exposure." Following his gaze, I saw Chen Wanshu cowering in a corner, utterly distraught. Turns out, in her eagerness for quick results, she had skipped a crucial step, leading to the radiation leak. Too young, too impatient to hold back, Jiang Shubai was rushed for emergency treatment, and as the team sticks together through thick and thin, the entire group faced disciplinary action from the base. Qin Zhaonan erupted in fury during the emergency meeting. "The entire 5th squad is dismissed. Who else can take over?" Everyone had witnessed Jiang Shubai's dire condition, and now they hesitated, too afraid to step forward. I hesitated for a moment, then raised my hand. "I'll do it, Wan Tong. I'm the only one who can do it now." Qin Zhaonan gave me a troubled look, but ultimately nodded in agreement. "All right, Tong Wan, you take over." Learning from past mistakes, I didn't dare to be careless again and meticulously carried out the research work. After 6 months of seclusion, I finally developed clothing that could block gamma rays. While it couldn't solve the problem at its root, at least it allowed people to be exposed to the sun in the short term. Meanwhile, the construction of the underground city was also completed. Qin Zhaonan held a celebration banquet for me. Everyone was overly joyous and drank a bit too much. After expressing my thanks, I walked alone to the tower platform to sober up in the breeze. At that moment, a figure suddenly emerged from the shadows. Tong Wan, basking in all the glory, quite the spectacle. "Aren't you?" Looking back, it was Chen Wanshu. I swirled my wine glass, not bothering to be modest. "Thank you. It was indeed quite glorious." This feeling was far better than the belittlement Jiang Shubai had once subjected me to. For a fleeting moment, it even made me feel like I was 22 again, still brimming with youthful vigor. Dark circles shadowed Chen Wanshu's eyes as she said listlessly, seeing me in such a miserable state, "You're quite satisfied, aren't you?" A flash of aurora passed, and only then did I clearly see her face. After being dismissed, no research team dared to employ her again. She was completely marginalized at the base and would soon be sent back to the mainland. I poured the red wine down from the tower. When the nest is overturned, no egg stays unbroken. "Chen Wanshu, your vision is far too narrow." Chen Wanshu suddenly stepped forward and grabbed me by the collar. "Your research went so smoothly only because of the materials by Sue and I left behind." I tilted my head and smiled. "Data full of errors isn't worth referencing." Her grip tightened, her hands began to tremble, and the fury and resentment in her eyes finally dissolved into a single tear at the corner of her eye. I raised my eyebrows in surprise. Chen Wanshu finally let go, her voice choked with emotion. Fine. I admit I'm no match for you. Tong Wan, I'm begging you, could you go see Shubai? He's badly injured, can only eat liquids these past 6 months, yet he keeps calling your name." I rubbed my temples wearily and refused directly. "Sorry, I'm not interested in seeing a married man." After speaking, I turned to leave, but suddenly met a pair of familiar eyes. Erwan, it was Jiang Shubai, sitting in a wheelchair. I looked at him with a complicated expression. As someone who had been wronged, I really wanted to curse him and say he deserved it, but then again, he was severely injured precisely because of his research to save humanity from the apocalypse. Out of humanitarianism, I nodded at him. "Long time no see. I've successfully researched the experiment you failed." Jiang Shubai had 70% burns on his body, but his head was spared, allowing him to speak to me at this moment. He pursed his pale lips, then gave a desolate smile. "You truly are Erwan. Oh, by the way, in a few days, I'll be sent back to the mainland." I tilted my head slightly. "Well, good luck to you then." Jiang Shubai looked at me with red eyes. "I'll always wait for you to come back, even if it's the apocalypse." After many years, hearing this false gaze again, I only feel irony, so I smiled and said, don't take childhood words seriously. Jiang Shubai's face turned pale as he lowered his eyes in sorrow. "Ah, Wan, you still blame me, don't you?" I squinted my eyes, sighed softly, and shook my head. "Jiang Shubai, I remember. About 4 years ago, when I wanted to restart my career, you did everything to stop me." Hearing this, the last trace of color drained from his face. Lost in thought, I raised my hand and caught a palmful of Aurora. I didn't understand it then, but now I suddenly do. "You're scared, aren't you? Scared that your wife is better than you. That's why, after we got married, you kept belittling, ignoring, and suppressing me, to the point where I almost forgot how brilliant Tong Wan was at 22. Jiang Shubai suddenly stood up, only to fall back into his wheelchair. "It's not like that, Wan. You're just a girl. I don't want you doing such dangerous work. I'm doing this for your own good." I twirled the empty wine glass, catching a glimpse of my reflection in the glass, no longer as haggard as I was a year ago when the divorce shattered me. "Jiang Shubai, those words might have fooled the young Tong Wan, but they won't fool me now." Before he could speak, I continued, "As for Chen Wanshu, you personally taught her, and you have all the sense of accomplishment and experience. She is indeed much more interesting than me." Jiang Shubai gripped the armrest of his wheelchair. "Wan, I'm sorry. I regret it. I shouldn't have thought of leaving you in the extreme heat apocalypse. I was blind. When I recover from my injuries, we can be together again. No need. I'm better off without you." With that, I turned and walked away. At the corner, I ran into Qin Zhaonan. His cheeks were slightly flushed, the alcohol apparently not yet worn off. "Ah, Wan, this time, are you really not looking back?" I teased. Considering the bond we've shared since childhood, maybe I'll visit his grave after he dies." Qin Zhaonan chuckled twice. "Then now, may I invite the great scientist Tong for a dance?" I poked his forehead, and Qin Zhaonan staggered back a step. "Let's talk when you're sober, buddy." That night, he never did sober up, pulling me to dance like a monkey for quite a while. Later, the superflares ceased erupting, and all personnel at the Arctic base gradually returned to the mainland. As an outstanding contributor, I was awarded the highest honor of the Academy of Sciences. At the moment the applause erupted, I spotted Jiang Shubai in the crowd, seated in a wheelchair. His eyes filled with indescribable sorrow. By the time I came to my senses again, he had already disappeared. After the match, Qin Zhaonan reached out to me from not far away. This time, I didn't refuse. I held his hand back. After that, while doing my research, I occasionally heard news of Jiang Shubai. It was nothing more than him being frustrated and unsuccessful, and as time passed, he blamed all his misfortunes on Chen Wanshu. 2 years later, he passed away due to a skin disease caused by radiation. As for Chen Wanshu, no institution dared to hire her again after she caused a major research accident. I ran my fingers over the wall full of trophies and smiled indifferently. Looking up, the future and I are bathed in the brilliance of the rising sun.